So let's start with the classroom level infrastructure. Starting with looking at classroom furniture, the evidence on this is rather ambiguous and not very strong. There are, of all the studies, there's 2 significantly negative effects and 1 significantly positive effect. So overall, we're not finding a very strong effect on classroom furniture on student learning, okay? What about blackboards and flip charts? There we find stronger evidence, especially for blackboards, that they often increase student learning, both at the elementary and the secondary level. So now let's look at the effect of classroom level infrastructure on time in school. Again, there's not very much evidence out there. There was one study that looked at the effect of furniture, desks, tables, and chairs and found no significant impact. That was in Ghana. The same study found a positive impact of blackboards on time in school. And finally, there's a study from India that also found a positive impact of blackboards on time in school. There are several studies that looked at school libraries and computers, and they do show increases in student learning. Regarding time in school, there isn't much evidence that those 2 things increase students' time in school. Okay. Now the third category, utilities, there are some studies here, again not a lot. There's evidence that electricity does increase student learning, but in contrast there's very little evidence that drinking water has any effect on student learning. Finally, for sanitation facilities like toilets, there is evidence that it does increase learning of both of boys and girls at the primary and the secondary levels. In terms of time in school and the effect of utilities, there's really only one study that's looked at this and found that no effect of electricity on time in school. So there's really, and maybe a little bit of effect of drinking water on time in school, but that's about it. In developed countries, there have been some studies, not on utilities, there's nothing on utilities, but in terms of classroom infrastructure, there's a study of the effect of classroom infrastructure on student learning by Harder in 1999 that actually found no significant effects on either reading or math scores. In terms of sort of school level infrastructure, there was a study by Konstantinopoulos and Borman on library books per student, among other things they looked at, and of the 6 estimates they have, 2 were significantly positive, so that's somewhat favorable. Finally, if you look at the effect of computers, there's 2 studies, one done in Germany and one in Portugal. The one in Germany actually found significantly negative effects of computers on student reading scores, and in Portugal, the study of computers found no effect on student learning. Okay, so we really don't see much in terms of this. Finally, there was one study on science laboratories in the U.S. secondary schools that actually was probably the most promising. Of 6 estimates, 3 of them were significantly positive, okay, in terms of student learning. So to sum up, there's not much evidence from developed countries nor from developing countries on the impact of student infrastructure. What evidence we have is not particularly promising, but probably more evidence is needed. So that would be my recommendation to going forward with looking at school level infrastructure.